In this tutorial we will be looking at inking and how to use the pen tool on Photoshop CS4. Inking is very useful for making your lines seem cleaner and more professional in an animation, and it also makes them to follow for your audience. You can use the pen tool in a few different ways to ink things in. You can also ink using the brush tool. Before using the pen tool, make sure you have a layer with the transparency down to at least 60% and a new layer called inking, which you should select and use the pen tool on that layer. Of the ways, use a thinner line using this technique. Select a smaller brush like the 3 brush to make a thicker line. Select the 5 brush. However, this technique kind of only strokes the middle of your line, so if you kind of wanted a more patchy looking line, it would be better for you to use this technique. To actually create a path, click with your left mouse button where you'd like your line to start, and click on the other area to create a straight line. If you want to create a curving line, click on the point as you would with a straight line, but keep your mouse button held down and drag outwards until you've created a line that you're happy with. Here you can change what thickness of the line you'll have. Right click your path here and click on stroke path. You can check simulate pressure or uncheck it. If I do an example with simulate pressure and using the brush tool, it will look like that. And to delete this path, right click on a point or on the line and press delete path. You can see that that is the line I would get. However, you can use this without stimulate pressure in a very similar way by selecting stroke path and unchecking simulate pressure, which will give you a cleaner line, but obviously it won't have any pressure simulated on it. So you can use both techniques and they'll work effectively, but it really depends on your own personal preferences and style preferences. Using the pen tool, like any other tool, requires quite a bit of practice, but once you've had that practice, you should be able to use the pen tool quite effectively. You can see the difference between the line styles here. The third and final way to use the pen tool is by creating a solid shape and simply by right clicking it and selecting fill path. You can choose between using the foreground and background color or use your own color. It's easier if you select your inking color in the foreground color, because then you can just keep on selecting that and press OK. And then you delete the path and you can see that it is a perfectly straight line. This also works when you create curving lines, however it is more complicated than the other techniques, as the other techniques, as you can see, you need to drag out these handles to create the curved line. However, your lines will curve around these handles, so if you wanted to create a solid shape, you'd need to adjust the handles again and just keep adjusting until you're happy with the line you finally receive. you can also use a pre-existing pen tool technique and combine it with using a brush, like using simulate pressure on the pen tool, and by drawing neat, or as neat as possible, black thin lines, I'd recommend using the 3 brush for this. You can ink using a brush as well. That is the basics of using a pen tool to ink on Photoshop.